All righty. Well, thank you guys for joining us this evening. For those of you guys that don't know me, my team knows me very well, and they're probably like, oh my God, unfortunately, yes, we do. My name's Becky Wolfinger, and I'm an advanced director from here in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania, where we have more cows than people, but it's my kind of pace of town. Just a little bit of background. I've been with Pampered Chef. Actually, in July, I'll be celebrating my 8th anniversary. I have been a director now for 7 years, 7 of the 8 years, right around there. I have been an elite seller for 7 of the 8 years, you know, earned the trips, the blah, 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 blah. And, you know, it really comes down to one thing in our personal businesses, and it's always about sales or recruiting. Would you guys all agree? You can kind of do big things in this business if you can master one or the other or both. And in this case tonight, we're going to be talking about virtual recruiting because it's something that I think I would say a lot of us do virtual shows. How many of you guys do virtual shows? Raise your hands. Okay, so it's pretty, you know, it's not unique anymore. Would you guys all agree? You know, it used to be a couple years back, everybody was like, oh, you do virtual shows? What the heck is a virtual show? And now everybody runs their businesses either, you know, partially virtually or primarily virtually. And some of us, you know, we just kind of find our passions and we kind of stick with it. So, you know, I love virtual shows because they can do a lot of different things for a lot of different people. You know, some of you guys probably fall into the category where you're a stay-at-home mom or you're working a full-time job. You know, no matter what that reason is that you decided that virtuals are your thing, I want you guys to always be aware that just like you chose to do virtual parties, through virtual parties, you're also opening up the door to someone else that fits in the same boat or category that you do, right? So our situations are really never unique because out there's always going to be someone that's going to share something in common with you, but you're really never going to find it unless you ask questions, right? Or unless you have conversations with people. So I'm going to kind of walk you guys through 2 different kind of steps, so to speak, with virtual parties. If anybody has background noise, just make sure to mute yourselves. Let me see. Someone has a TV on or something. I'm hunting it down. Oh, I think I found it. Hold on. Hear that? That's quiet. Yay. Okay. So how did that happen? All right. Okay. Peace and quiet again. It's like I have kids right by me. Okay, so, you know, when I was looking through the Google Doc that I did with you guys, I asked you guys some really kind of feeler questions, you know, and a lot of them were responses that I typically would expect. Okay, so a lot of you guys have a fear when it comes to recruiting, okay? Raise your hand if you have a fear with recruiting. Yeah, there's going to be something at you that's like, I just don't feel 100% comfortable, whether it's actually asking people or it's responding to people, okay? So, you know, that's really something that holds us back in this business. And in my opinion, it starts with our personal belief in ourselves. And that's why you develop a fear around something. So how many of you guys have ever seen the triangle? I'm sure your directors have probably pointed it out to you a million times. You know, it's called the belief triangle. So if you're not familiar with it, if you have a piece of paper handy, I want you guys to do me a favor. I want you to draw a triangle. Just draw a triangle on your paper. And at the top of it, I want you to write the word belief. On the bottom right side of it, I want you to write the word actions. And on the bottom left side, I want you to write results. So each one of those 3 words are going to connect to each other in a way, okay? So, you know, in this case, we're talking recruiting. And so if you already believe that you can't recruit, you know, you reinforce yourself the actions. So, you know, your actions would be not asking people, right? So if you're not asking people, then that reinforces the results that you're going to get, which is you're not going to recruit. And if you're not recruiting, then that's going to reinforce your belief, which is you're afraid, or, you're not a good recruiter. That's what we put in our minds. Now, if you start to change that a little bit at a time, and your actions, let's say you start actually asking people, instead of asking no one, we're just asking, I don't know, 1 or 2 people every week. Well, what happens when you start getting the results, meaning that you start getting potential recruits? Then you kind of have this little thing in your head that's like, oh, maybe I can do this, right? So it changes the way you start believing, or the way you believe about recruiting. The results are always going to change the outcome for us, right? So the first time that you recruit someone, which I've seen again with the whole Google Doc, that a lot of you guys have not ever recruited yet. And so I think with the combination of what I've seen on there, that 6 or 7 of you have this like huge fear of recruiting, and the fact that a large portion of you guys have never recruited, that I guarantee you it's coming back down to our personal beliefs within ourselves, the reason why we're not recruiting. Because if you're not comfortable with it and you really don't know how to respond to it, then you're probably not going to ask because you're not comfortable. It's like a little vicious cycle that keeps going on and over and over and over and over again. So why is there a fear there? That's the other question I want you guys to ask yourself. What are you afraid of? Are you afraid of being told no? Probably. How many of you are afraid of asking someone to book a show and hearing the word no? It's really the same thing. None of us really like to be told no. Ask any of your children. Do they like to be told no? No, not at all. And so what do? You tell them no, and most of the time, what do? They stop doing, So you don't want to feel like you're bugging. Yeah, let's talk about that, because that was really leading me into where I'm going with this. So, our fear, and again, one of those questions I asked you guys, and a large portion of the responses that I've seen was that you guys don't want to feel pushy. If you're just joining us, just make sure that you guys mute yourselves for me. That way we have a clean recording for anyone that is not here with us this evening. So most of you guys don't want to feel like you're pushy. Anybody like feeling like they're pushy? Nobody wants to feel pushy, right? Nobody wants to feel pushy when you're asking about recruiting, or if you're asking, about booking a show either. We never want to feel pushy. So has anybody ever told you that you only feel pushy when you're actually thinking about yourself? How many of you guys have heard that? Yeah, you've probably heard your directors tell you guys that 1,000 times, maybe even more than 1,000 times. Because really the reason we do feel pushy is because we're putting ourselves in front of the opportunity for someone else, okay? So yes, it makes us feel uncomfortable, right? Lots of things we do in life make you feel uncomfortable. Going to the doctor makes me feel uncomfortable. How many of you guys like going to the doctor? How many of you guys get your blood pressure blows the roof when you go to the doctor? Because you're not comfortable, right? But have you guys ever seen anyone be successful in life in their comfort zone? Probably not. Ever. I would say never. I mean, think about it. How many things truly happen that are amazing in life when you're just stuck in your little circle and you don't step out of it and live a little or push past those fears? You're not going to get the results that you want from it. So I think the other portion of why we don't ask is because we're not confident in ourselves. I think confidence is another thing that plays a big role, with our business in general, is that you have to feel confident in what you're doing. And so my question for you is this: how many trainings are you attending that your directors are offering you? Because the one way I surely know to build my confidence in myself is to educate myself. So the more trainings I attend, the more, trainings I listen that were recorded, the more I go on Pampered Chef University, the more books that we read on leadership, or, just anything. Or how many of you guys have an accountability partner, that you can talk through those fears with? All of those things will help you build confidence in yourself, because, you really realize that, I mean, you don't totally suck at everything you do, right? Nobody totally sucks at everything they do. Yvette, I know you're laughing at me. Look, you have to know one thing about me, guys, and that's just I'm the give it to you kind of girl, right? I don't sugarcoat things. It's just not my style. So if I offend anyone, I apologize now. I will try my best to not do that, but I can't make any promises. So, you know, all of these things, though, will help you build your confidence. How do you guys feel? You know, how do you feel when you actually, you know, let's say talking about the Rock Rock, right? If you knew every spec there was on the Rock Rock, you would feel a lot more comfortable offering the Rock Rock to someone. Would you guys agree? You know, so if you were, you know, attending all of these trainings that are offered and you're educating yourself on recruiting and you start to feel comfortable with it because it's just another part of our job, then that's going to help you boost your confidence a little bit. So, you know, I challenge each of you guys that, you know, when your leaders are doing trainings for you guys, take the time out to do it. Okay. How many of you guys have ever worked retail? Not with Pampered Chef, have ever worked retail? Look, I see all these hands going up. Okay, so I'm a retail girl. Like prior to Pampered Chef, I was a retail manager. And, you know, I often think back to my days with that because, you know, I ran a $100 million store. But the funny thing is that, you know, that store wouldn't have run unless I walked into the building, like turn the key, open the door, turn the lights on. You guys know what I'm saying? Like, you can't actually run a business if you don't walk into the business. Does that make sense? You have to step your feet in there and like unlock the door and flip on the light switch and go to work. So it's really no different with our business other than the fact that we're our own bosses, you know. So we have a lot of leeway there, but your hours as a business owner are flexible, but they're not optional, right? So you actually have to participate in your own business to be successful with your own business. So educate yourselves, build your confidence up, guys. And then, you know, from there, once you start getting confidence with yourself, the sky is going to be the limit for you, both with bookings and with recruiting also. You know, and it's always going to go back to the amount of the amount of bookings that we have ultimately to start our recruiting. Okay. Because if you don't have bookings on your calendar, how are you going to find enough people to ask anyway? Right. So you have to really develop your schedule and you have to know what your schedule is going to be. You have to know when you're going to work, right? It's like any other job. Most of us feel comfortable with our 9-to-5 jobs because we know we're working Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, right? We go there and we have a boss that tells us exactly what to do with that 9 to 5 hours, you know, and we have somebody holding us accountable. But in this kind of business, we have none of that. We have nobody breathing down our necks. We have nobody to check into. We have nobody that's telling you exactly what to do. You know, we're responsible ultimately for our success or our failure. We really can't blame anybody else in this business for either of those. It is always going to come back directly to us. Okay. How many of you guys want to fail? Wow. Why don't I see hands up for that question? Nobody starts a business like this with the expectation of failure. Would you guys agree? We all go into this business wanting to have success, right? And for each of us, our success is going to look unique from each other. You know, some of us want to be the #1 consultant in the nation. Not me. Some of us want to be the #1 recruiter in the company. Some of us want to, you know, make $15,000 of a month. Wouldn't that be great? $15,000 paycheck a month. I mean, hello, how you doing? I see some hands waving. Absolutely. You know, so you got to start somewhere. So it all goes back to, like I started this with, it's going to be your belief ultimately. You know, if you're going to work on one area, work on your belief, you know, really help to develop yourself both with your belief and your confidence, because that's ultimately every success and failure is going to go right back there. You know, your failures are going to drag down your belief. And then your big wins that you have are also going to build your belief. Okay. So just know your highs and your lows are always going to go right back to your belief in yourself. So, you know, if you're feeling confident, and especially in virtual parties, I think the more confident you are, the easier it is, let's just say, the easier it is to have conversations about the business, okay? So again, if you were someone that really didn't understand all of the aspects of our business, you're not going to feel as comfortable and confident answering questions when you start talking, you know, with someone about the business opportunity. So, you know, that's kind of why, you know, I help my team a great deal with virtual parties. You know, I help with them with the outlines. I help them with figuring out, you know, those engagement questions, like how to get the conversations going. And I really ultimately know in my heart that it comes back to each one of us being unique in our virtual parties and not trying to duplicate each other, okay? So the more that each of you guys can just be yourself in your virtual parties, the more people are going to be attracted to that. You know, people are really good judges of character, whether we want to believe it or not. And I know with virtual parties, we're just copying and pasting, right? It's just copy and paste and copy and paste. We live in this copy and paste world. But, you know, people can still see through that. You know, especially, it's funny, I'll tell you guys a quick story that one of my girls, she had copy and pasted some words and sent it to a guest of hers. And she was like, is this really you? Like, whatever, you know, consultant it was, she was like, is this really you? Blah, blah, blah. And my consultant responded back to her and they were like, yeah. And the person responded back to her, they're like, that's not how you talk, you know, but they were using my words, you know, to send to this customer. Well, one of their really good friends. And they seen through it, even though it was just words, right? So when you're, you know, I don't know how many of you guys, you know, share a template within your organizations. But my challenge always to my team is to take that template and, you know, change it up so that it fits you and fits your personality, right? Add some unique content to it that really lets people see you for you and not you for just a Pampered Chef consultant, you know? So whether it's you actually taking some pictures of yourself with products, or you going live, or you doing a recorded video, people need to see that there's really a person behind all of those words, okay? So, you know, photos or live videos or videos in general are really a way to connect people to you. You know, I half think sometimes that when we just have this copy and pasted outline that we post to customers, some of the reason why we don't really get all those red flags in our face about recruiting is because they just don't see us. You know, they just see words. They don't really see us. And so I think that the more that you can bring yourself into the party, okay, both with showing our products and, you know, just really just go on there and just tell them about yourself, you know. I encourage my team members all the time, like when we start our parties, go live before you start your parties. You know, let people see you. Let people see your hand gestures, your head wags, or whatever you do. You know, let them see your personality, because then, you know, they know that there's really a person behind that apron that they're working with. The more you can be you and the more unique you are in your parties, that's when you're going to stand out. You know, so a large portion of virtual parties, I really think it always is going to go back that you have to start getting to know people. In our parties, the way we do our outlines, the first 2 days is strictly about getting to know people. We don't talk products. We just simply get to know people. I shared this with Yvette and Wendy and some of the other girls a couple days ago, that we do a large amount of polls. Okay, and I'm going to give you guys some, you know, ideas here in a second. I'm going to show you some of the polls that we do. But we do polls in order to get to know people, because the end result in a party as you're going is to have a conversation outside of that party. How many of you guys feel that you're good at transitioning from your Facebook parties to a conversation in Messenger? Does anyone feel like that they do a good job of that? Okay, so I'll tell you, you're really never going to recruit anyone if you can't get that conversation started outside of the party. Okay. So recruiting in a virtual party, there's two different facets to it. You have your guests that you interact with, just as if you're at a cooking show, right? You're watching for all of these red flags to pop up of who to know is interested in becoming a consultant potentially. Then you're always going to have your host, right? We're going to talk about the host later. So right now we're going to kind of focus on the guests at our parties. So you have to figure out how to transition from one to the other. So let me share my screen. I'm going to show you guys some ideas of things that we do. Alrighty. Okay, so this is one of the polls that we use in our parties. And, you know, it's simple, right? And it's just really to get to know people within my party and potentially what they're doing this summer. So we ask them if they're going on a summer vacation. So A, they're going on a summer vacation. B, there's no trip planned yet, but one in the works. C, we aren't traveling this year. Or D, vacation, what is that? So can anyone think, and you can unmute yourself, can anyone think of why I would ask this question? Why would I want to know this? So, Karen, I see you came unmuted. What do you think?
I think that if someone's not going on a vacation and is saying, what's that, LOL, maybe they don't have the money to do it. And maybe you start the conversation with, maybe you want a free trip next year to Disney. Let me tell you how.
Yeah. So, you know, they're transitions. This is a transition into digging a little deeper with people, right? So I always, you know, premise this with, you know, the fact that I am one of those people that I fly by the seat of my pants. Like, I just went to Virginia Beach this past weekend. It was totally unplanned. We decided on Thursday to do it. You know, that's the kind of person I am. But this question lets me kind of dig a little deeper. So they're going on a vacation, right? So letter A is I'm you know, going on a summer vacation. So instead of, you know, just letting them respond, so they would write a letter A, when they post that, most of us as consultants are going to be like, okay, so they posted a letter A, now what do I do with that, right? So our jobs as consultants is to dig beneath the layers of the lettuce, right? We're to kind of pull back the layers of lettuce, okay, to see how far down we can get with them. So, you know, what's a question that one of you guys would ask them if they were a letter A?
Where are you going?
Where are you going, right? Start it simple. Let's just take it slow, get to know them. So if they said, oh, I'm going to Virginia Beach, then me as a person that grew up in Virginia Beach, I can relate to them. And so I'm going to start the conversation there, right? So remember that, you know, building a relationship with people takes time. Okay. It's not, oh my gosh, so they're going to Disney and let me say, oh my God, you can go on a free trip to Disney next year, right? You're just meeting these people, right? So have you guys ever gotten, you know, how did you meet your husband? I want you guys to think about your spouse. Did you meet them and marry them the next day? Probably not, right? I don't think that probably happened. And so it's the same thing with people in parties. We don't meet them in one day and marry them the next day, right? We're not meeting them today and signing them tomorrow. Most of the time, let's be realists, it's going to take some conversations before we really get to know whether they're interested in this business or not. And so these are just this is a starting point for you. So if they answered the letter B, no trip planned yet, but one in the works. Again, it would be the same kind of thing for me. I would ask them, you know, so where are you thinking you're going, right? Or if you are the C, we aren't traveling this year. Then you can dig a little bit with that one. So, why aren't you guys traveling this year? Too busy or no money? You know, you can kind of ask those probing questions to really kind of get a better understanding of each person. Okay, so here's another example of a polling post that we would do. Let me find it. Gotta love screen share sometimes. Said no one ever. So this one, what would you guys do with this one? Tell me your experience with stoneware. I do not own any. I have one but never use it. I'm obsessed with all things stoneware, or I'm not familiar with stoneware. Could you guys see this leading outside of a party somehow? And how would you transition this one to a conversation outside of your party? Anybody have any ideas? Oh, we're all stumped. I love it. How many of you guys have ever seen our little like e-cookbooks we have? Yeah? Awesome. How many of you guys use them to your advantage? Some of you do? Okay, good. So this kind of polling post is the perfect reason to use one of those e-cookbooks to transition to a conversation outside of your party. So let's say you have that person that says, yeah, I have stoneware, but I don't ever use it. Oh, so Yvette, which stone do you have? She's like, what? Which stone do you have? And let's say Yvette says, oh, I have, you know, the pizza stone and I just don't ever use it. Oh, do you not use it because you need more recipes? And most of the time I hear, you know, people tell me, oh yeah, I could always use recipes. Okay, well, guess what? I'm going to send you a friend request and then I'm going to send you a private message and I'm going to send you a file of recipes. People love recipes, guys. Is it costing you anything to send a message to someone, right? Is it costing you anything? No, it's not. It's free, right? So it's also helping you to be the, like, you know, hero of the day. You're sending them a free e-cookbook for a product that they have in their kitchen that they're not using currently because they don't have recipes for it. So you really look like you're like, oh my God, you're swooping in and you're like problem solver number one. Okay. So, you know, you transition, you send them the cookbook and then you start a conversation. Again, don't go right in for, oh, do you want to join my team? No, do not do that. Okay. Build your conversations, grow your connection with this person as if you were at a cooking show. Okay. Help to develop it, right? Don't go, like I said earlier, from meeting them to marrying them within 24 hours. It's not going to happen.
I always get lost.
So let's check out one more polling post and then we're going to move on.
I can't hear you, dude.
All right, so here's another example. This one's not a poll, but it's a simple question I ask. So raise your hand if you still have Pampered Chef products in the box. Because how many of you guys have ever heard this before? Oh, I have products, but I don't know what to do with them. They're in the box. I have a deep cover baker, but it's still in the box. I don't know what to do with it. And, you know, up above this, I have them like drop a selfie with their product that's in the box for me, and they get bonus points. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, it's total fun. Like I had this one lady, like, literally step in front of her whole pantry that was Pampered Chef in a box. And I was like, oh my God, I'm coming to your house and I'm pulling them all out of the box. Okay. But what does that do for us? Number one, it's showing me as a consultant what the product is, because you know half of them can't remember the names of them, right? They are not going to remember the names of the products. I mean, come on, how many of them they're trying to tell you the mix and chop and they go like this? You know, they do the international signal for the mix and chop and you have to play this guessing game. So if they post a picture, then you know what the product is. And again, this picture transitions me outside of the party to a conversation, because then I can offer recipes, tips, whatever they need for that product that's in the box. Okay. Kind of your goal in this whole little, like, you know, like marriage before marriage is to really get them excited about you. Okay. You need to look like the superhero in the kitchen for them, because we need to break down the wall. Would you guys all agree? Most of the time, whether it's a virtual party or a cooking show, people have a wall up until they really get to know you. Okay. So you have to find a way to break down that wall. And the best way that I know how to break down that wall is by giving them something for free. And if that something for free is also free for me, then it's a win-win. Okay. The best part of the free for me is the free conversation I'm getting ready to have with them. Okay, so let's keep going here. So how do you transition then? So we've gotten these people, we're having conversations with them, right? You know, because that's our end result. I want you guys to think about every conversation you're having from here on out, from starting tomorrow or tonight, is ultimately for you to get from that party to a private message conversation. That is your end goal. Okay. That is what I want you guys to think from here on out is how can I transition this into a conversation outside of this party? So eventually, once you keep talking with people, you're going to kind of have some red flags starting to be thrown up, right? Especially if you're really, really observant in your parties. A lot of polls will tend to lead themselves into showing you, you know, those people. Have you guys ever seen those people? Oh, I have everything in the catalog. I have everything in the catalog. I want everything in the catalog. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Have you guys experienced these people? I can't afford to buy anything. Okay? We're going to have these people. I don't have time. How many of you guys here, I don't have time? Like if you're talking to them about a party or you've done a post about booking a show and you have someone that's like, I don't have time for that. I already have a really stressful job. Or, oh my gosh, you know, I love Pampered Chef. How many of you guys hear that one? I love Pampered Chef. Like I'm Pampered Chef's #1 fan. Yep. You're going to hear them. And most of us are just like, oh my gosh, yay, you're psycho. Awesome. I love you. But in reality, they're really telling you something if you're paying attention. If you're paying attention, then you know that these are red flags for the perfect consultants, right? Or in my mind, I say green flags because, you know, these people lead to green, right? They lead to money for you. So they're really green flags. But if the consultant hasn't shown up to the party, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? We get in this little copy and paste world. We get a little too comfortable with our business and we start to like really not pay attention because, you know, it's just another party. It's just another number. It's just another host. And so when we get in that mentality, we tend to miss a lot of things, which are these flags that I'm talking about. You tend to look over them when in reality, you know, Kim's telling me something. She's like, you know, I'd love to have a party, but I just don't have time. Or I would really love that deep covered baker, but I can't afford it. So if you're observant and you're paying attention, then the goal again is to get a conversation outside of that party, okay, to start. So how do you transition from one thing to another? It's really simple, guys. Don't make it about you. Make it about them. Okay? If your conversations always start with you, you're never really worrying about them. You guys know what I'm talking about. When you message people and you're like, oh, hey, Jessica, I really need some bookings next month. You know, what do you think about booking a party in the month of July? Our special's so fabulous. It's the best special all year long because we say that every month, right? Every month is the best special every month of the year. It's the special of the year every month. If your conversations are always starting with I or me or I need or, you know, will you help me, then your verbiage needs to change. Okay? And it's the same thing going with recruiting. You know, when we start talking about, you know, if somebody asks you a question, let's say they say, so how much money do you make every month? And I really say, I'm like, oh, I make blah, 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 blah. And I'm talking about me, right? I'm not really switching that conversation to get them to think about themselves. Right now, they're only thinking about me and how much money I'm making. But I need for them to think about how much money they want to make. So you can transition that conversation, Lisa, by saying, oh, well, you know, I typically, you know, I do XYZ amount of parties every week. And, you know, most virtual consultants earn XYZ amount of money, you know, per month. So how much money would help you and your family, Lisa? You know, so always pose those questions because you need it to become personal, right? You need to really take the spotlight off of yourself and put it onto that person. And so, you know, you kind of transition, you walk this fine line with them. It's kind of like a little tango that you're doing, that you really don't want to, you know, I always think of a cold pool. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? How many of you guys dip the toe in? Are we dippers or jumpers? Who's a jumper? Because we have our dippers and our jumpers. Okay. So, you know, and some of us are belly floppers. Let's just be real. Recruiting, most of us tiptoe. I would say, again, it goes back to our confidence that we kind of slowly transition, right? But really, I think most of the time, if you're paying attention to the conversation you're having with people, they really want you to just jump in the pool with them. They want to know, like they're screaming for your help. You just have to be awake enough to see it. So, you know, transitioning through these, make sure that you're keeping your responses to them short and sweet. Okay? A lot of times we get what I call, you guys are probably gonna, you know, have heard this one too, I'm sure. Hey, Heather, do you know what I'm getting ready to say? What am I getting ready to say, Heather? We word vomit, right? You guys know what I'm talking about? When you get really excited because you're talking with someone and, you know, you go from this person asking like, oh, so how do I get started? And you're like, and their head does a 360 and they're like, oh my gosh, what did I just ask? And it's really because we're excited about it. We're excited and we share too much and it scares people off. And so that's why I said a couple minutes ago, you have to ask them questions. You need to let them be the ones talking and not you, okay? We need to be the best listeners in the room when it comes to these conversations about recruiting. You know, short, sweet, and to the point. The other thing that I seen earlier in the Google Doc is that a lot of you guys have a fear surrounded by objections and overcoming objections with people. Because eventually that conversation is going to transition to a maybe or a no, right? And so how many of you guys, if they say no, you just let it be? You just let it go. How many of you let it go? A lot of us probably do. So, you know, I want you guys to think of your directors as your best friends when it comes to recruiting and even bookings. If you don't know how to respond to someone with a no, send a screenshot to your director. I guarantee you that they can help walk you through how to respond to someone. Because again, it goes back to everybody's situation is going to be unique to them. Pretty unique, you know. But those of us that have been around a while and talked to a lot of people are going to have some words to help you through every kind of objection, you know, that you could probably face. And, you know, a lot of times we can turn that no into a maybe or that no into a yes. And it really is all about our verbiage. You just have to have that little bit of self-control to pump your brakes and stop the conversation for a second, take a deep breath, and reach out to your director, okay? Or even if you have somebody that messages you and they're like, hey, you know, Amy, I would, you know, really like some information about the business opportunity. If you're somebody that's never recruited or you're somebody that's not had a recruiting conversation, then this is where I would definitely tell you guys to reach out to your director first before responding to them so that maybe your director can really help you through the next step in that conversation, okay? But, you know, always remember that it's really not about us. It's always going to be about that person. We should never feel so powerful that our needs are coming before their needs, okay? Our power is pretty awesome that we literally, I think in this business, have the control over whether we ask or whether we don't ask. And our jobs is to ask everyone. And I want you guys to think about it this way, and then we're going to talk a little bit about host coaching here in a second. Do you want to be that person? You guys know what I'm talking about, that person. I always think about, you know, at a cooking show, you know, you've got all these people lined up to do the checkout with you. And eventually, you know, you ask, you know, 7 people, and now you're at the 8th person. It's the last person in line. And for some reason, you don't ask that person, whether it's us judging them, which I would say is probably 90% of the time. Oh, they don't look like that they would want to be a Pampered Chef person. Or I overheard her talking to Susie and she's really busy. I'm not going to ask her. You guys know what I'm talking about. You have this conversation with yourself up here that gives you all the excuses of why not to ask somebody. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? We have this like little multiple personality going on up here that's like, don't do it, don't do it. But I want you to think about that 8th person, if they were the one that really, really, really needed you to ask them. You know, that person that's looking for a way to pay for gas to get to their real full-time job. Or that person that really needs money for food to pay for their kids. You know, to put food in their kids' mouths. How would you feel knowing that you didn't ask that person? You know, let's say a couple weeks later, you see that said person is now a Pampered Chef consultant and you weren't the one that asked them. You're going to probably feel a little sense of guilt with that one. So our job is to just ask everyone, okay? Judge no one and ask everyone. All right, so I found it interesting too in the little Google Doc that only 50% of you guys ask your host. Thank you guys for being honest about that, okay? Because first of all, that for me in itself threw up a red flag in my own mind that I need to evidently have more conversations about why our hosts are so important, okay? Your host is your number 1 recruit lead. Always has been, always will be. How many of you guys hosted a party before you became a consultant? Yeah, I would say, I mean, I can't see everybody. Some of you guys don't have your cameras on, but I would probably say, you know, 70% of people, of consultants were, you know, hosts, which tells you that's always going to be your number 1 recruit lead. Have you guys ever heard the ask host 5 times? I'm sure you guys have heard this, right? Now, does anybody really know how to implement this into your virtual parties, into your virtual host coaching? There's a process. How many of you guys ask 5 times? Can we go back to that P word? You guys know what I'm talking about? This is when the P word comes out. When I tell you that you need to ask your host 5 times, the first thing in your mind is probably, oh my God, I don't want to feel pushy. I'm going to feel pushy if I'm asking my host 5 times. When in reality, the ask host 5 times really is not structured to be ask your host completely, like openly asking them 5 times. You guys know what I'm talking? It's not like, you know, I'm doing my first thing of host coaching and I'm like, hey, Yvette, you want to join my team? And then like a week later, I'm, hey, Yvette, you want to join my team? No, that's not what we're doing. Okay. Would you? Yeah, exactly. So I want to show and share some words with you guys. You've probably seen this picture, but I'm going to give you a literal breakdown of how this program actually is supposed to work. Let me find my picture. I hide all my pictures from myself. Yes, I'm chatty. I'm sorry, guys. I'm super chatty girl. Okay, so before you set up your show, at some point you should have had some kind of conversation with your host, right? Either whether you're messaging them or you're having an actual telephone conversation. Most of us, I know, you're not picking up the phone and talking to your host to have this conversation. We're messaging. So, you know, that first conversation with them really is to just introduce the Kit credit coupon to them, okay? That's the reality of Ask Host number 1. It's really about telling them, you know, so you have this amazing opportunity to use this Kit credit later on in the party and just planting an initial seed in their head, okay? So that first time you ask people, they're going to say no, right? So, you know, Yvette, there's a little thing called a Kit credit coupon in your host packet. You know, have you ever thought about becoming a Pampered Chef consultant? No. That's what you're going to hear. No. Not going to happen, right? Ask host number 2 is normally after, the party's getting ready to start. You've had some interaction going in the party. And it's the perfect opportunity to say, oh my gosh, look, your friends are so excited. Melissa, are you sure you don't want to turn this into your launch party? Most of the time, they're going to read it and they're not going to respond to you. Or again, it's going to be a no. It's not a direct ask, okay? You're literally just saying, your friends are so excited. Are you sure you don't want to turn this into a launch party? You're really not asking them to become a consultant. Ask number 3 is really when how many of you guys do your hosts? You have your host engaged. You have them posting something daily in the party. Some of you guys do that. Good. Yes, and if you don't, you need to. You guys know why you need to? Because this is the way that you get them to see themselves as a consultant. Yes, we tell you you want to do this because it helps with the engagement. Have you guys heard that? Of course you've heard us tell you that. That's really not the reason. Come on. Really, the reason is because we need our consultants to see themselves in this job. And if they're posting those daily posts every single day, guess what? They're already doing your job, right? You might as well offer it to them. And so ask host number 3 is really not even asking, you're complimenting. Oh my gosh, Tara, you're doing such a great job with these posts. You would make a fabulous consultant. Again, they're going to read it. Sometimes they comment. 90% of the time, they don't even respond to it. You move on. It's just a seed, guys. It's planting a seed over and over again. How many of you guys have ever grown a garden before? Okay. So our first little step in planting a garden is to do what? My husband's like, me, pick me. You gotta break the ground up, right? That's that first ask. You're breaking up the ground, right? The second one is you're, digging your little hole to drop your seeds in, right? That's number 2. Number 3, you drop your seeds in. So we're slowly planting this garden, you guys, right? So ask host number 4 is the most important one of all. Home Office has actually been looking into this, and they've had a study going on with a bunch of field consultants, and 82% of recruiting, if you're following the system, comes from ask host number 4. If you're following this program 100%, meaning that you can't just go right to host number 4, right? You can't just ask the fourth question without doing 1, 2, and 3. It doesn't work that way.
I am training.
You have to do all of the steps leading up to 4 for 4 to work. And number 4 is when the party has qualified your $300 in sales or $400 in sales. The host is because I hope you guys are messaging your host and encouraging them and be like, oh my gosh, your party's qualified. You better start making your wish list, right? Keep them excited, keep them engaged. When they're at 400, what happens at $400 in sales? You guys know this. Come on. Who knows this? A couple of you going like this. Kit Credit, right? Kit Credit's in the house. That's right. Whoop, whoop. I know. So why would we not want to, if their party hits $400, say, oh my gosh, guess what? I can give you the deal of a century, right? I can give you almost $400 worth of products for $59. Why would we not want to throw that out there to our hosts? So this is where ask host number 4 comes in. So at 4 is when your party is at, has reached that Kit Credit level. That's when you jump in for number 4, because now you can share facts with them, right? Now you can share the results of all their work and your work together. Now I know you guys are saying to me right now, you're thinking, you're like, well, what if my party's not at 400? What if my party doesn't have any sales? How many of you guys were thinking that? What if my party doesn't qualify? I don't want them to be on my team. Why would I ask them if their party doesn't qualify? Yeah, we've probably all thought that before. And my answer to you is this. How many of you guys would rather have a party with your friend or with a stranger? Yeah, think about it. If you have a group of friends that don't really have the money to buy Pampered Chef products, right? And you're currently shopping with someone you don't know, but then your friend decides to become a Pampered Chef consultant, wouldn't you rather support your friend that's becoming a Pampered Chef consultant versus someone you don't know? So that's why we still ask that host that's party has not qualified. Because 9 times out of 10, if that person decided to still become a Pampered Chef consultant, their friends are going to book parties, right? If they had a wish list started, they're going to book parties with that friend. But not in, if you're not asking, then they're not given the opportunity to do that. And that host is not having the opportunity to make money. So, just because you get to 4 and the party's not qualified or it's not at the, Kit credit coupon doesn't mean that we stop, the process, right? You still ask that host the 4th time. So then you go to number 5. Number 5 is really when you're closing up the party, right? It's kind of standard. You're going over the host rewards with them and you remind them of the Kit credit coupon. I typically send the Be a Consultant link. How many of you guys use that link that's on your website? Anybody send them? Okay, good. If you're not sending people to the Be a Consultant link, you need to. Because I will tell you that most of the time, any questions that they're going to ask you are going to be answered right there on that page. And I don't know how many times I've sent that link to someone that was on the fence, and guess what I got in my email? You have a new consultant. You have a new team member, right? Because they read through it. They didn't really need me to answer the questions because everything was being answered right there. And also there's this great, big orange little box that says join now. It's magical. It like calls their name and all like blinking lights, and they click it and then they join when you send them there. It's magic. So, really 5 is about closing the party up and kind of doing the wrap up. So, that's really, is it really that complicated? Not really. We overcomplicate things as consultants, right? If you have a system that's going to work, the best thing that you can do is walk through the system that works, right? You have to get comfortable with it. But again, it's going to kind of always go back where we started in the beginning of this, is with your belief in yourself. No matter whether you're recruiting your, guests at parties or your hosts, as a consultant, always goes back to our personal belief in ourselves. So if you are someone that's struggling in that area with personal belief, then guess what time it is? It's time to do a coaching call with your director. Because all of us can really help you overcome any of those little things that we're kind of like doubting ourselves about. Because I would probably imagine all of us as even leaders have lots of doubts in ourselves. And the best way that we work through those is by talking with someone else about it. I can tell you the girls that are on here, Wendy and Yvette and Suzanne and Amy, we talk religiously every 2 weeks, right? If one of us is struggling with something, we pick each other up with different ideas, different ways to look at things. Most of the time, we don't ever really help ourselves by staying in our own heads. But when we ask someone else to kind of dig into our head, they can normally kind of peel back those layers of the lettuce again, right? It really helps to talk to someone. So if you're someone that's not doing coaching calls with your director, tomorrow I would message your director and be like, hey, can we do a coaching call sometime in the next 3 days? Because if you really want to recruit, you have to figure out you first, okay? You've got to get your own personal belief in check in order to recruit, okay? It's always going to come back to you. Because the moment you have that little crack, that crack becomes a fissure, and then that fissure, you guys know what happens next, right? Keeps growing and keeps growing and keeps growing. And then you really start to doubt yourself. And then you're not going to ask anyone. So, all right, so we have a couple minutes for questions. Who has questions? No question. to go back through the chat box. Someone said, I don't like to feel like I'm bugging people. Oh, so I'm going to ask you, do you feel like you're bugging people because you're worried about you? Or are you worried about them? It's hard to ask someone when you don't know anything about them. Okay, so that's the perfect reason why we start digging, right? That's the reason why we have those conversations, is to get to know people. I'm a firm believer that the more you can get to know someone as a person, the easier it is then to kind of transition into those private conversations. And you have a better understanding of people, right? If I know that this person is, doesn't have the money, they have kids, because again, all of my outline is built around polls. And so I find out a lot of information along the way that helps me really have those conversations. Let's see. Yes, knowledge is power, girlfriend. I love it. I love that graphic. Will you share it, please? I wish I could. A lot of us, I can put it up if you want to kind of like, get an idea of what it was again. But a lot of us make our own graphics and share within our organization simply because of, this magical word that we all hate called Facebook jail. Most of us don't share our graphics for that reason. It's really, really easy to create your own graphics. I use a program called Canva. It's a free website. You can go on there. There's an app, which I don't really like the app. Monkey is the app I choose to do a lot of my graphics on. But very, very simple. You don't find anything easy about Canva. I have a video that I can send you for Canva, a how-to video.
Becky?
Yes.
Can we ask people to mute themselves? There's really bad background noise again.
Oh, let's see.
There's only one or two who are unmuted, so.
Who is it?
It's the one that says iPhone.
iPhone, who are you?
Might be me, Roxanne.
Roxanne! All right, I'm gonna mute you. There you go.
Much better. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, anybody else have questions? Did I bore you guys to death? You guys all awake? Did anybody learn anything? No? Yvette said no. Thanks, Yvette. I love you.
Now I'm joking.
Yeah, right. You are so welcome. Yeah, you are absolutely welcome. Well, if you guys do have questions, I mean, seriously, your leaders are amazing. They're a bunch of amazing ladies. And especially, some of these girls have been in this business for 20 plus years. So if you're not tapped into their knowledge, it's time to tap into their knowledge, right? If you really want to take your business to the next level, it always is going to start with you and your decisions. And one of the best decisions that you're going to make in the next 24 hours is really to do a coaching call with your leader. I can't stress that enough. The ones that the more you learn, the more you earn. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. That's what it really all boils back to. So I give you guys kudos for jumping on here with us this evening. I appreciate you guys' time this evening, for coming on here because, again, you're what's going to separate you from everyone else. And the fact that you took time out of your schedule this evening to learn about recruiting with virtual parties says it all. And it probably says it all to your leaders as well to see you on here with them. So, it's definitely the biggest thing that you can do, guys, is just ask everyone. That's really the mindset you have to go into recruiting with, is asking everyone. Every single person deserves this amazing opportunity. I think back to 8 years ago, had I not been asked when, my family literally went from a 6-figure income into poverty in 24 hours. Had I not been asked, me and my family, I have 4 children, we would have been on the streets. So without Pampered Chef, that's where I would have been. So, don't take that away from someone. Don't ever take that away from someone. So, all right, my friends. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us this evening. Mwah! Smooches to you all.